Your metabolism hasn't slowed down because you're getting older. It's slowed down because of your lifestyle. If you're new here, I'm Zach Rana, a biochemist and metabolism expert, and I've helped over 200 frequently traveling professionals get leaner and stronger while being on the road multiple times a month. In this video, I'm going to show you how my client Scott, who's 57 years old, achieved the transformation you see on the screen. So it's not about age, it's about how you're living. First off, we're going to go over what Scott did to lead him to his starting point with us and what was not working and slowing down his metabolism. Second, we're going to go into the science of how the metabolism actually works and go into the biochemistry of it. And then third, we're going to go over the tactical things we actually did with Scott to see the transformation that you see on the screen. So without further ado, let's dive in. First off, I want to show you this transformation with Scott, right? So to give you some background, Scott is 57 years old, 5'8", and works as a software pre-sales consultant. So in other words, he's traveling every week, giving presentations, giving sales presentations. And by the way, his close rate is typically 80 to 90%. So if you're in sales watching this, you know that that means he's really good at what he does. And he came to me looking like this picture on the left. Now, what he had been doing prior was he had done lots of cardio. He'd had experience with competing in different events and was generally like a fairly healthy person. Like when he came to me, he was like, I feel like I'm pretty healthy, but I don't know what I'm missing to get to that next level. He's like, I'm carrying extra fat in my stomach. I just don't look as like the way I want to look. I don't feel the way I want to feel. He'd mentioned he was carrying some extra fat in his chin, if you could see that here, and just like wasn't feeling his best, right? So I want to walk you through a couple different steps of what we actually did here. And here's a little win he posted. Biggest health win is just feeling great. That hasn't been a truth for a long time. And then during the holiday season, it's been a chance to keep the momentum. Been building for the past 9-ish months. I'm not starting anything on January 1st, just continuing to improve. So really great way to dive into the new year here. But yeah, we're going to dive into, his body weight graph, all the different changes that we made. But before we do that, and for any of that to even make sense, we need to understand how the metabolism actually works. So I want to start off by quoting a study from Duke, which in this study, they were trying to figure out how much does our metabolism actually slow down with age versus lifestyle factors. And what they found was very fascinating, which is that up until the age of 60, our metabolisms actually don't slow down very much because of age. And even after the age of 60, they only slow down 0.7% per year. So that means from the age of 60 to the age of 90, your metabolism will only have slowed down 27% due to age. And that really only starts around the age of 60. So all of the marketing that you hear of when people say oh, my metabolism's slow because I'm getting older, and they're 40 years old. Nope. Can't blame age for that. You need to blame your lifestyle because that's what's actually impacting it. So if you are feeling any of these things, this means you might, and most likely probably have a slow metabolism. So if you're at a weight plateau, feeling fatigued, can't focus, low energy, bloating, low sex drive, depression, insulin resistance, bad skin and hair, all of these things are signs of a slow metabolism. And actually right here, basically, once your metabolism slows down, what you'll notice is essentially that you're going to have these weight loss plateaus. You're going to feel persistent fatigue, you wake up every morning, you're like, no matter what, I'm exhausted. It's probably because you've tanked your metabolism. And there's actually a scientific name for this, which is called metabolic adaptation. And if we think about us evolutionarily as human beings, our bodies are designed for survival, right? And so what happens if we restrict calories or we're not sleeping enough or we have high levels of cortisol is our body thinks that we are going to die. And if our body thinks that, then what it's going to do is try to hold on to fat as much as possible, because holding on to fat is what's going to ensure that we can survive longer without food. So anyways, that's why our bodies do what they do and why they slow down our metabolisms. It's not because they hate us. It's because they actually want to do what they think is best for us. And so what most people do when they're feeling, I want to lose weight, I want to get, in better shape, they usually start working out and moving more, and then they start eating less, right? It's a very common thing. Oh, if you want to lose weight, just eat less and move more. And that works to a point, but more often than not, what it ends up doing is taking the metabolism. Eventually we feel all these things and then we get stuck. So we need a better way, and we need to think more long-term. If you're watching this video, hopefully you're looking for more of a long-term solution, not just like a band-aid to the problem. So for a long-term solution, what we need to focus on instead, and I'm gonna get my handy dandy pen out here, and let's see if I can change the color to a bright green. Awesome. So what we want to focus on more is our BMR, our basal metabolic rate, right? The majority of people, when they lose weight, they want to focus on this quadrant right here, but that's only 25%. Our BMR is 60%, right? So this is more short-term thinking, is like, let me just move more and get more exercise, which, by the way, getting more exercise, great. Not saying don't do that, but what ends up happening if we just bump up exercise, for example, doing a bunch of cardio and eating less food, is over time, the metabolism is going to slow down. So what we want to do instead is focus on this quadrant of our BMR. This is just the amount of calories your body is burning at rest, right? Just sitting at your computer, working, thinking, breathing, sleeping. This is all of these things burn calories, right? And so if we can actually raise our metabolic rate, what that means is we can start to eat more food and continue to drop body fat. And that's what I'm going to show you with Scott. And I'll go into the details of it in a second. But Scott currently, as of February 2026, is eating 2,350 calories at 5'8", at 160 pounds, right? And he looks like this. So, and we're going to keep increasing his calories because his body is in such a fat burning stage now that we can actually do that. So how do we do this? This sounds like magic, Zach. Like what is this sorcery that you're doing here, right? So what we're doing is we're focusing on raising his metabolic rate. Now, the ways that we do this, number one, is by putting on muscle, right? So I'll actually put this here, and excuse my terrible handwriting. I'm writing with the mouse. So number one is increasing muscle mass, right? If we have more muscle mass on the body, that actually burns more calories. 1 pound of muscle burns 4 times the amount of calories than a pound of fat, okay? So I'll say that again because it bears repeating. 1 pound of muscle burns 4 times the amount of calories than a pound of fat does on our bodies. So what does that mean? We should put more muscle on our bodies, right? Does this mean you're going to turn into Arnold Schwarzenegger if you start strength training? No, because Arnold Schwarzenegger would train 4 to 5 hours a day, 6 days a week, eat 5,000 calories a day, and he hasn't fully admitted to it, but he definitely was also on steroids. So as long as you're not doing that, you're not going to get huge like Arnold Schwarzenegger. If anything, muscle is actually leaner and more dense than fat. So your frame will actually like shrink in a way. So anyways, I digress, but we want to put on muscle, right? That's the number one thing. Now, the number two thing is we want to think about this quadrant as well. And this quadrant is 99% of what I've seen about the metabolism overlooks this quadrant, which is the thermic effect of food. So what's really fascinating about the thermic effect of food is, and what that means in English is thermic means heat, right? So food, basically how much energy does our body burn and consume through just breaking down the food that we eat, right? And so what happens when we purposely focus on the right ratio of macronutrients, which is proteins, fats, and carbs, we can actually also increase the thermic effect of food. So this is really fascinating here too, because the highest thermic effect of food comes from proteins, and the second highest comes from carbohydrates. Now, what do you see in a lot of the stuff out there with like keto is like cut carbs and eat a bunch of fats instead. Fats have a very low thermic effect of food, so they pretty much are canceling out this quadrant if we eat a diet higher in fat as opposed to a diet higher in carbohydrates. Now, we want to use our carbohydrates properly, time them correctly, but anyways, so that is a summary of the way that the metabolism works. Now let's actually go through tactically and take a look at Scott over here and talk about like, what did we actually do? How is this even possible? So he came to us, he joined our program in March of 2025. So about a year ago now. And his starting weight was 175 pounds. Now, he worked with our head coach, Shalin, and the first thing Shalin did was he put him in a calorie deficit, right? Move more, eat less, except the movement type he was doing was strength training, and his calories were very specific to be the right ratio of macronutrients for his body's needs. Now, here's something really fascinating and something that kind of annoys me about the fitness industry is everybody just kind of gives these like cookie cutter things like, oh, just do, just eat less food, right? Like, and yes, that will work. But if you want to actually change your body composition as opposed to just losing weight, then you also need to eat the right ratio of proteins, fats, and carbs. And that's going to be specific to every individual. And that ratio should also change over time as it did with Scott. And I'll show you what this looks like. So starting in March, Shalin put him in a calorie deficit. By November, he looked like this. And he was 152.8. So shredded. I mean, you could see his abs popping out. Like you could see the divot in his shoulder come in. You could see the definition in his back, right? Compared to here from March, like pretty substantial changes, right? Now, the thing is, we brought him down to 17 to 1800 calories. So he's not eating that much food, right? And again, what we don't want to do is put the body into metabolic adaptation, because over time, if we keep cutting forever, we're going to reach metabolic adaptation. We're going to plateau. We're going to hit some very negative consequences as a result of that. That's another mistake a lot of people make is they think, oh, I just need to lose weight, so I'm just going to keep cutting my calories. You need to be thinking more long-term than that, which is I can cut my calories to a point, but then I need to actually reverse them back up so that I can keep my metabolism firing. Okay, now we fast forward to February. His current calories 2350, current weight is 160, but look at how he looks at 160 pounds, right? This is right here, only 15 pounds less than his starting weight about a year ago. But his body looks extremely different, right? And he feels extremely different, right? I remember the very first call I took with Scott when he came to me looking like this, low energy, just like feeling down, just not feeling his best. And I remember I actually met him in person in December. So it was a little after this. And I remember him being lean, fired up, like just strong, powerful, confident. So that was a major change. And there's something really fascinating I want to show you guys here too, going from November to February, because you might be wondering, well, wait a minute, he bumped his calories up and he put on weight. Does that mean he got fatter? No, he actually got leaner. And the way I can show you that is check out his back. Do you see how he's holding a little bit of fat here? Something to note for men specifically is we primarily carry fat in our lower backs and our abdomen regions, right? So you could see that here from starting. You could see kind of how it is spilling out over the sides right here, and then same over the top. And then you could see how it's gone right here, but there's still a little bit on the back. Now, when we go to February, you can see pretty much melted off, right? You see the difference? So he's actually leaner than he was before, eating more food. So this shows us, this is his body weight graph, right? Came to 175. I think right here was November, 152.8. And then here is February, right? So this is what a proper weight loss graph should look like when you're thinking about what does fat loss and body recomposition actually look like. And when we think about long-term goals too, what I always tell every single client, and this goes for anyone, even like watching this video, is you want to create a system that you can actually maintain and do for the rest of your life. Eating 17 to 1800 calories as a highly active male is not very fun. That's not a lot of food. Versus 2350 and more, 2350 or more, that's a lot more fun. You have a lot more leeway there. You can have a lot more fun. You can eat out a lot more. And so when we think about it more long-term and we're like, okay, I want to actually eventually be able to raise my calories higher so I can eat more food and continue to get leaner, that's right there is the ultimate goal. Anyways, I hope this stuff makes sense. One other thing that I wanted to point out, which I think is really fascinating, Causes of metabolic adaptation, which we didn't go over yet. Chronic calorie deficit, rapid weight loss, reduced body mass, hormonal changes, right? So what are the ways we can actually reverse this? We can do diet breaks, we do reverse dieting, resistance training, increased protein intake. By the way, I'm not making these things up. This is literally from the NIH. So we did all of these things. I mean, we properly reverse dieted Scott, and you can see, hopefully you understand now with the way that the metabolism works, why this was so incredibly effective. And we're going to keep doing this process with him. And really for each of us, like, we all should keep going through this process. I go through this process myself every single year, right? I have a phase where I get leaner, then I have a phase where I build up and get stronger. And then I just repeat that cycle over and over every single year. So anyways, I hope this video was helpful. Comment any questions that you have down below. Ultimately, my goal with this channel is, like, I just want to pull back the curtain on the fitness industry. Everybody makes it seem like this, just like crazy thing. And then people get overwhelmed and they're like, oh, I'm just going to take Ozempic instead. It's like, no, don't do that. That's literally going to shoot you in the foot, because you're going to be ruining your metabolism by doing that. I mean, unless you're like severely overweight or you're pre-diabetic or you have diabetes, then that might be the right option for you. But anyone else, the way that you want to actually counteract, putting on an extra body fat, extra body mass, is by boosting your metabolism naturally. And that's my goal on this channel, is to pull back the curtain there. The last thing I'll say is that with Scott, he's traveling a ton. And so a key thing that he had to be aware of, and that if you're traveling a lot watching this, you need to be aware of, is how can I actually hit my macronutrients while traveling? And when you could crack that code, that's where things just take off. So on my channel, I have a ton of different stuff that goes over, like, what to eat at the airports, how to deal with restaurants, how to navigate client dinners, how to structure your day from a macronutrient component so that you can actually hit everything you need. So I recommend checking that out. Hopefully that will be helpful. And then if you want one-on-one direct support like Scott had, you can click the link down below, book in a call with my team, and we can see if we help you out. So I hope this video was helpful. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here and you want more content like this. And I will see you in the next video.